Hi everyone, I'm Sean, and today I'm going to be reviewing Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Okay, so like a lot of people, I read and liked The Martian pretty well, Weir's first book. I thought it was a very fun book. I enjoyed the science of it, I enjoyed the plot, I liked the humor. All in all, I thought it was a good book. My only criticism of that book, The Martian, was I did not like when it switched from the main character's perspective to Earth and you saw the people trying to figure out the way to rescue this guy stranded on Mars. When it finally went back to the main character on Mars, I just didn't really feel as attached to him. So I thought that book, The Martian, was really good, but when it left the main character, it kind of killed the book for me, because when it went back to the main character, I just didn't really care about him as much. And the author talks in depth about how he has to cut these holes in this tarp or something for some reason. And I was just bored by it. It just kept talking on and on about cutting these holes in this tarp. And I was just like, what's this for? I don't really get what's going on. I don't really care about this guy anymore. So I kind of lost interest in the book then. But I still really like that book. I think I gave it 4 stars. And I liked it enough that I wanted to read another book by Andy Weir. Another thing I liked about his writing in general is that Weir has kind of a minimalistic writing style. So he doesn't describe much about the characters. You pretty much know their name and that's it. He doesn't tell you their hair color, their eye color. He doesn't tell you much about their family. He doesn't describe their figure or the shape of their nose or the shape of their jaw or nothing. He just lets you decide those features on your own. And I like that because that's a lot like my own writing style, because I think if it's not important to the plot, there's no reason to really describe it. Just let readers imagine it however they want. So I wanted to read another book by him. I saw Artemis, his second book, but I wasn't really too interested in that book. I haven't picked it up yet to read it. Part of the reason, and I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me on it, but I was talking with someone about that book and they said something in that book, Artemis, which has something to do, I think, with a colony on the moon or something like that, is Weir says that basically the people on this station have moved past like age of consent rules or laws or anything, or for marriage, they don't really care about age so much. So like children can get married and all that. And I don't know if that's true or if it's misrepresenting the book, but that's something I heard about what's in that book, is basically these people on this station do not care about age of consent really anymore. They've, quote, moved past that. Again, I don't know if that's true, but that's something I heard about that book. So that kind of made me not interested in it. I've seen this book, which I think is his 3rd book, floating around BookTube, and I've also seen it at bookstores and such. So I wanted to give it a shot. I did not read the back of the book or the synopsis or anything, so I didn't know anything about this book, except obviously it's about some guy in space, and I knew from his other book that it would be the same kind of story. Probably a lone hero has to fight to survive in some way. He has to fulfill this mission using science. And that's what the book is. I could go into the plot and tell about the plot of this book, but really I think that would be a major spoiler, because I think with this book in particular, a large part of enjoying this book depends on not really knowing the plot too much. So I can't really even say what he's doing in space, because that alone takes up, 4, 5, 6 chapters as he's trying to figure out what he's doing here in space. And so that would kind of spoil even just the first few chapters of the book, just saying what he's doing. So to summarize it, I will basically say it's very similar in substance to The Martian. It's about a lone hero who has to use science to complete this mission. That's all I really want to say about the plot, because if I give any details at all, it's really a spoiler, and I think it'd be hard to really enjoy this book if you know some of the spoilers, because that's what I think a large part of the book depends on, is revealing all this information. The book relies a lot on cliffhangers, so I don't know, I just think this is a book you don't want to know much about before getting into it because it'd be harder to enjoy it. I know I could just add a spoiler warning and say if you don't want to hear the spoilers, skip to the next chapter. But still, I don't really want to do that too much because there's nothing really crucial I would want to say about the plot of this book. My problem with this book is more just from very early on, it was clear to me that Weir was just using the exact same kind of jokes as in The Martian. The main character has the exact same sense of humor as the protagonist in that book. In fact, I had to actually check to see if this was actually the same character as The Martian, if it was a direct sequel, because they were just identical with their sense of humor, the exact same thing. So, because of that, this is, I think, going to be very divisive. I think if you liked The Martian and you want to have the exact same sense of humor, the exact same jokes as that book, you basically want The Martian 2.0, I think you would probably enjoy this book, or at least you would have a good chance of enjoying it. For myself, even though I liked The Martian and I liked the humor in that book, for this one, it all just fell flat for me because instead of being humorous, all the jokes, it just made me cringe. It made me sigh. It made me roll my eyes. Is this the only type of character Weir can write? Is just these real sarcastic characters with juvenile sense of humor? So I want to try to be very clear about this. If you like the humor in The Martian, you may like this because it's the same thing, or you may think it's just a tired rehash, repeat, ripoff of The Martian. You may want something different. You may want a different kind of character. Personally, that's what I wish would have happened. The only way I think this book could have been redeemed as far as the sense of humor goes is if Weir actually did use the exact same character. If he did use the same protagonist as in The Martian. If that was the main character of this book, it was just a direct sequel. Then I would have been much more receptive about the humor. It would have made sense to me that, oh, it's the same sense of humor because it's literally the same character. That would have been fine to me. But since it's a different character with the exact same sense of humor, they sound like clones of each other, it just felt tiresome to me. It wasn't just the character's sense of humor that felt juvenile to me, it was really the whole book felt juvenile. In fact, I would almost say this book sounds like it's written more for middle schoolers, or maybe like early high school. And it's in part of the way the character speaks. He uses all this language like holy moly and stuff. And it just sounds really middle school to me. You may like that, you may not, but that's my takeaway of this book. And I wish it was more serious. If this was the first book I read by Weir and I wasn't really corrupted or spoiled by The Martian, I might have liked this book more and liked the sense of humor. But reading it when I did, after reading The Martian, I was just really tired of this book. At least the humor and stuff, really early on. None of it worked for me. It never even really made a giggle. The Martian was a phenomenal success. Artemis, Weir's second book, I think did not get as warm a reception. So I think what he's trying to do with this book is to replicate The Martian, have the same kind of sense of humor, the same kind of gist of the plot, and just do a repeat of The Martian to try to win back some of those fans who liked that book. Another thing a lot of people don't like about this book, and I do agree with it, is the main character is trying to figure out solutions to these problems, and basically the way Weir solves the problems for his character is he has flashbacks, and he basically remembers like, oh yes, I know the answer to this. This wouldn't be as big a problem, but it happens time and time and time again. Really, every chapter he's trying to figure out the answer to some kind of problem, and so he has a flashback and then he's like, oh yes, I know the answer. Or he is like, oh man, I'll never figure this out, this is doom, I'll never get out of this. And then in about 2 paragraphs he has the solution. He just sciences his way out of it. In The Martian, I liked it. It was really relatable. I felt like I was there with him. The science felt enjoyable. But in this one, it feels more like a crutch. Like he has a problem, he uses all these kind of scientific reasoning things to create this problem for the character, Weir does, and the character just figures everything out too quick, or he just figures everything out through these flashbacks. So that really didn't work for me. It was tiresome, and yeah, that was a problem with the book. A lot of readers have criticized about that, and I do agree with that. The other thing that's received a lot of negative reviews for this book, and again, I don't want to give a spoiler for it, but there is a character who is introduced like 30% into this book, and a lot of people do not like in their reviews how quickly the main character and this other character are able to communicate and get along, and just like instantly they communicate. And this other character as well has the same kind of juvenile sense of humor as the protagonist in this book. So all in all, that's a theme that just keeps coming up for me, is juvenile. This really feels like a book written for middle schoolers. It's written like with the mentality of middle schoolers. So to me, that was difficult to get into. Rating it, personally, I can only give this book 2 stars, and that is it. I can't give it a 3rd star for effort or anything really, because just nothing worked for me too much. I don't quite think this book deserves a 1-star rating, because there's nothing I truly hated about the book. It's just everything was really a turnoff to me. All the ways he finds out the answers to these problems and his juvenile sense of humor, it just made me roll my eyes, sigh, cringe. But it didn't ever make me furious. It didn't make me say, oh, this is totally ridiculous. It just didn't really work for me. So for that reason, I would give it 2 stars. I would not really recommend it. All I would say is if you really like The Martian and you want a story just like that, I think you may like this one, because it's very much just written to be like the next Martian 2.0. Again, I think the best way he could have changed the book to make me like it more would have just been to have it be a direct sequel, to have it be the exact same character from that book. I know the author may have felt there could be problems with that. I don't know exactly, like if he thought, well, if he has the character from The Martian is in this book, you would know obviously he survives the first book. So that could be a problem for plotting the book. Maybe he thought of that. Maybe there was something else he thought. Maybe he just didn't want to use the character with the same experiences. He wanted to have someone thrust into a situation that they didn't really have any experience with, like no experience with flight or, space travel or whatever. So that this guy would be completely a fish out of water for that reason. Maybe that was on Weir's mind. Maybe he thought the protagonist would have been too old. Maybe he thought it'd just be unbelievable having this same crap happen to the same guy. So he introduced this other character. Personally, I think since he used the same sense of humor, he should have just used the same character. That is my opinion. If he did that, I may have given the book 3 stars, possibly as much as 4. I don't know. But as it is, I can only give this book 2 stars. I do recommend The Martian. I recommend both the book and the movie. I have not read Artemis yet, and I don't really plan to. After reading this book, and also knowing that that book got some more negative reception, I'm not sure if I will read it, so I might wait for Weir's next book to see if I'm going to give him another try. A very last thing I'll say about the book is the main character is named Grace, and this is just an example of the juvenile sense of humor. I think Weir named his character Grace just so he could use this joke, Hail Mary, full of grace, because that's the main character, Grace. He's in this ship. Hail Mary, that's the name of the ship, full of grace. That's the only reason he named him that, and that is just an example of the sense of humor, which I found tiresome. Okay, that is it. Thank you guys for watching. Have you read any books by Weir? Did you like The Martian? Did you like this book? Have you read Artemis? What did you think of that book? Should I give it a try? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!